task is going to be a reading quiz. It's number one right there. So you're looking for this. It's both an announcement and an assignment. Science2H tasks for U4L11, Wednesday 4/8. Oops, did I get that wrong? Yeah, sorry. Date should be Thursday. That's today. But wow, sorry, I've clicked on the completely wrong class because this is also F period. My bad. I want it to be later in the morning already.
Mr. Hay, Carmen wanted me to let you know that her power's down and her Wi-Fi is not working, which is why she's not on.
Cool. No, that's good to know. Yeah, I noticed we're on the backup generators here on campus, so power flickered. Okay, sorry. This is what you're looking for. Again, I'll fix the date real quick. I should say Thursday, not Wednesday. But it is Science2F tasks for U4L11. Task number one right here is a Hewitt reading quiz on 5.5 through 5.6. It is open notes, so if you want to refer to notes in your notebook or on a digital notebook, go for it. It's 5 questions. I'll time us for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back together to review it. I'll be here listening if something isn't working or if you have a question. Go for it. Great. All right. Looks like everybody got it in. How we feel on that quiz? Okay. Feel like it reflected the reading all right? Let's take a look at the statistics real quick on Canvas. So this is showing the F period results. Question number 1 was all about which of the following is true about gravitational constant? And again, about 10 of you got the correct answer, that all of them are correct. Again, technically, everyone else who responded to, you were correct. It's just everything that it's a very small number, gravity is a weak force, and it brings newtons into the mix. So you're all on the right track thinking about that, but all of those actually apply to it. So what is a vestibular sense? Can anyone tell me, what is your vestibular sense?
The sense in ears.
Like your ability to determine where gravity is pulling you down to, so where you are as far as your orientation.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird thing to think of body orientation, but you are aware of your body position, and it sort of makes sense because if you think about our evolutionary ancestors, does anyone know what was true about primates? Why would body position be an important thing for them to be aware of? Think about our habitat and where our ancestors lived and what they did.
Didn't they swing around?
Ran around a lot, but our ancestors were also very good at what?
Climbing?
Yeah, climbing, right? Trees and things like that, being able to hang upside down, jump between branches. The more aware you are of your body position and whether or not you're falling and that sort of thing, I think is definitely an advantage. I don't know this for sure, but just my mindset thinking about evolution.
It also has a lot to do with balance. That's what it said also.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's important, especially if you're going to be a good climber, or again, being upright and walking upright, right? We're very good at balancing too. Good, everybody got that. If you consider normal weight, then when you're on an elevator going upwards, you're going to have a higher amount of weight, and then when you're going downwards, you're going to have a lower amount of weight. There was a good diagram in the book explaining that. Looks like this was kind of always the question that was harder. Inhabitants of the ISS, they do not have a support force. I'll show you an image of this next in a little bit, but it's that idea that we talked about in a previous lesson that you're weighing on things, right? The reason we sense gravity is because we feel the weight. When you're sitting in your chair right now, you can feel yourself weighing on the chair, but the chair is also weighing on you. That's part of what you're feeling, right? That's what's called a support force. And when you're experiencing zero weight, you don't have those feelings, right? We talked about how astronauts, when they go to bed, they don't press their head into their pillow. An astronaut can work out on a stationary bike for hours. They're never going to have a sore butt from the bike seat because they're not actually weighing on it. There's no support force there. And the last question, why hasn't the Leaning Tower of Pisa toppled over? The real answer is because they haven't let it topple over, but it's because its center of gravity does not extend beyond its base. Most of you got that. Again, the one distracting answer that I've seen in all my classes is that, yeah, the center of gravity extends far behind its base, counteracting the lean. It's not technically true. Like if you look, there's a diagram in the book that sort of shows where its center of gravity is. But if you've seen the Leaning Tower of Pisa, they don't often show this in pictures, but they do have a counteracting weight that is attached on the back. But that isn't like trying to compensate. It's not shifting it behind, right? It's just keeping the center of gravity for the base, make sure it doesn't tip over too far. And it's the kind of thing that, you know, nowadays we could definitely fix. I feel like, but it's so famous for its lean that now they're like, well, okay, we're just going to keep it where it is. So, all right, any other questions or comments on that quiz? Looks like you all did a good job there. Did better in some of my previous classes. So, all right, just wanted to give you an opportunity to review the homework. It was reading check questions 8, 10, 12, and 14. Here they are. 8 was on 5.5, 10, 12, and 14 were on chapter 5.6. Was there anything on those you found confusing or left blank, or anything you'd like to look over right now very quickly?
Yeah, number 12.
Mm-hmm.
Or I didn't know, like, well, mg, I didn't know if you were talking about like mass times gravity, or like.
Yeah, the chapter is really kind of weirdly unclear on this. They like harken back to chapter 2, which we haven't read. But yes, mg, I immediately thought of a unit. Anyone know what unit do you think of when you hear mg?
It's just weight, right?
Yeah, like I think of milligrams, but that's not actually what it is. It's mass due to the acceleration of gravity. That's what mg stands for. In other words, it's just your normal weight. So question 12 is, when is your weight equal to mg? Did anyone figure this out? What has to be true about your body? Like what are you doing when your mass is equal to mg?
Isn't it just like you're not moving?
Yep, you're standing still, right? That's the key thing. So in reality, we're all on a planet that's rotating, so none of us are technically standing still. But it's that idea of like, think of you in an elevator that isn't moving, right? Or just standing there. That's when your weight is mg. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the standard. Does that help, Hank?
Yeah.
Yep. So then question 14, figure this out. When do you have zero weight? What do you have to be in at that point?
Free fall.
Yep. So when you're in free fall, you're experiencing zero weight. And that's something we'll review again today. But that's when, so technically like parachuters, that kind of thing are getting close to zero weight, even though they're also experiencing a lot of wind resistance. So.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for number 8, was the
Yep.
answer 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th Newton?
Yes. Yep. So that number, the gravitational constant G, that's what it's based on, is the amount of gravitational force between two 1 kilogram objects 1 meter apart. So yeah, that's what question 8 is getting at. Mm-hmm. It's the value of the capital G. I have no idea how they quantified that, but they were somehow able to measure it, and that's now kind of the standard. That's what we use in the math equation. So, yep. All right, good questions. Any others? Okay. Then the next task for me is just to go through, I'm just going to go through about 7 slides to quickly review key takeaways from chapter 5.5 and 5.6. It's just kind of a review the reading as well. Feel free to jump in with questions if you want. Just remember to unmute yourself so that I hear you. And I'll probably toss out a few questions as well. So has everyone seen the slides on their screen? All right. So we'll just very quickly review 5.5. We've already done a lot of work with the gravitational constant, but I'll talk about the ear structure and how we detect gravity. And then we'll look at a definition of weight and weightlessness, kind of harken back again to some of our previous lesson with that music video, and talk about stability. That'll be the last thing. So first of all, I like this diagram that's over here that hopefully clarifies for some of you that one question about support force, right? I know it's a weird thing to think, but that is like when you are weighing on the planet Earth is also weighing on you. It's one of those weird things where you got to think about force coming in 2 directions. And so when you are experiencing no weight, that is what's missing, right? The people in the ISS, people in free fall, there's no more support force. And so you couldn't get on a bathroom scale on the International Space Station and register any weight because that support force is lacking, right? The scale is falling at the same rate that the astronaut is. And so there's going to be no difference there. That's sort of what's going on with the idea of zero weight. Okay, so this is a slide from the previous lesson, hoping we're feeling good here. Again, I'm not going to require you to do any math with this equation, but if you tried it for extra credit, great. But it's just that the gravitational constant's a very, very small number that kind of puts it all into context, right? Gravity is actually a very weak force. You have to have absolutely enormous masses to actually get gravity to act in any significant ways. Like planet-sized masses can exert gravity at a very strong level, but otherwise it tends to be very weak, and that number also brings newtons into the equation. Again, not sure how they quantified this, but that's what it's based on. So in terms of how we sense gravity, I think this is a really cool thing. You have what's called your vestibular sense. A lot of people think we only have 5 senses. That's not true. You have a wide variety of senses, and one of them is your sense of your body position, right? You don't have to be seeing to know that you've been flipped upside down or that you're in a car accelerating, right? You could be inside a sealed container like an airplane with all the windows closed, and you can still tell when the airplane on the tarmac has pulled out or when it's driving to take off, right? You can feel that motion, and it's because of your inner ear. Now, I'm not going to expect you to memorize all those anatomical structures. I know the reading goes into the otolith organs and goes into a lot of detail about this whole structure here. The key takeaway from this that I want you to take is just that your inner ear is what gives you that sense of balance, your sense of whether you're speeding up or slowing down, and where your body position is. That's the key thing to understand there. And again, pretty interesting to think about from an evolutionary standpoint. And the way it works is kind of cool, just to get into a little more detail here, that you have this sort of layer of calcium that's on top of these little hair-like structures. And the whole point is that the calcium moves a little bit slower, right? If you whip your head around, this layer moves a little bit slower than the motion of your actual body. And your hairs are able to detect that, do a little math, and can tell you whether you're moving forward, moving back. It gives you that sense. And, you know, I think it's kind of important, I think, especially for our ancestors, if they began to fall out of a tree or something like that, they could immediately react or reach out or correct themselves or balance if they needed to. I think that's where this is coming from. So here's a short video that I made showing you a model of the human ear and the inner ear structure.
Thank you, Dos. Just want to show off this model that I have of a human ear. We take off this front portion first. You can see the ear canal, which is what sound travels down and vibrates the eardrum right here. If you ever clean your ears using a Q-tip, this is what you're cleaning out. Wax can collect in here sometimes. This is a very sensitive structure though, so it's another reason why if you're using a Q-tip, you shouldn't go too far into your ear canal, or you could potentially damage some of these structures in here. Behind your eardrum are some of the smallest bones in your body. And again, that's because they are vibrating in response to the sound as it travels through the air into your ear. It's interesting to see that all of this is encased in bone to keep it secure. But what we really want to focus on is this structure here. These are called the semicircular canals. They're all part of what's called your vestibular organ, which is what gives you your vestibular sense, or your sense of body orientation and the sense of movement, right? You can tell that you're accelerating or decelerating, even if you're inside of an airplane and you can't see the motion itself. And I think this is a cool model because it really sort of shows you that each of these loops, you'll see you have one that's sort of like your left to right orientation. You've got sort of an up and down and then forward back. So you can see it sort of takes like X, Y, and Z into account, all 3 dimensions. And so there's fluids in here that move and hairs that respond to the movement of those fluids as they move around due to gravity. And inside here, just to get a little more detailed, is where your otolith organs are, and that's more related to acceleration. But again, don't worry about trying to memorize all the anatomical parts of the ear. I think it's more just understanding that that is what gives you your sense of balance in your inner ear structure. That's all you really need to.
So I think that's really cool. Just showing off that structure in there. This is one of those things that, a lot of people who talk about, like our bodies were designed, that this is one of those things that really kind of baffles my mind sometimes, to think, man, like how did that come around? How did we evolve that structure? I mean, it's so cool to see that it's got sort of that XYZ there's a little loop for each of those directions, and they all work together to sort of figure it out. Plus, you've got two of them working together. So it's pretty amazing. Has anyone ever gotten like water stuck in your ear after swimming or sailing or anything like that? Kind of that weird feeling like you're still underwater. Does anyone know where that water's being trapped in that case? What's happened?
Stuck in your ear canal.
Yep. So you get a little bit of water stuck in your ear canal. And one of the risks, especially for people who go scuba diving and stuff, who have to try to like equalize the pressure that's behind their eardrum, if they don't do it correctly, sometimes that water can get behind the eardrum and inside the inner ear structure, and that's not a good thing. That usually requires a little bit of you have to go to a doctor, and they kind of use a pressurizer to like kind of clear it out. So it's a weird kind of boom sound. I don't know if anyone's ever had that before, but the other thing too is ear infections, which I mentioned earlier, but if they're bad enough, they can really swell up that inner structure and they can actually mess with your balance. So
When my sister was a kid, she had to like get like little tubes put in her ear because of water. I don't know why, but
yeah, well, I think it's that same thing, that there was water getting trapped in that inner ear structure, right? And that can really mess things up. And so yeah, they have to be able to kind of drain that and get it out. And so yeah, I think that's one way they do that, is they use tubes. It helps prevent further ear infections too, from anything that might be stuck back there. Yeah, pretty crazy. All right, last thing to talk about is just chapter 5.6, the idea of weightlessness. Again, we touched on a lot of this during the quiz. They define weight as simply the force due to gravity on the body. And again, this is pretty much how you feel, right? You can feel yourself weighing on the ground, and the ground is also providing a support force, so it's rising up to meet you. And that's what they define as mg, mass due to acceleration of gravity. And so if you think about that, then any additional force, so if you're in an elevator that's moving upwards, that support force is now increasing, right? The elevator is literally pressing upwards on your feet. It's actually going to increase your weight. You're going to feel heavier. And you might feel this, right? If you're riding on, especially a very powerful elevator, if you've ever been in a building that's like has like 80 floors, the elevators go really fast and you can really feel it. Same thing if you're lighter when it's going down, because now there's less support force between you and the elevator. The elevator is essentially falling slowly and you're going with it. If the elevator were in free fall, then you would be experiencing what's called weightlessness, or zero weight. And that's what was going on in that music video. I have the image down there. Even though they kept talking about how, oh, we filmed this in zero gravity and gravity went away and gravity came back, that's not the actual accurate way to describe it. They were just in free fall with the airplane. So they were still experiencing gravity just like they always would on Earth. It's just that they had zero weight because everything was in free fall together. So everything was floating around inside the airplane. So I think that kind of helps explain what was going on in that video and what they were doing. And the last part of the chapter talks about what's called the center of gravity. And this is something we're going to explore today with an activity. It's the exact point of an object's average center of weight, which is kind of a very general definition. But the point is that everything has a balance point, that you could put it on that point and it should just balance there. Stationary objects, you can find this and play around with it. But like the human body, where we're constantly moving, it means that our center of gravity is also moving. But if you look at this diagram here, hopefully you notice that, again, anytime you're on your 2 feet, the center of gravity tends to stay above your feet, right? You can see that here. Even when we're standing on one leg, it tends to, you can see how the foot that's on the ground seems to be directly underneath that center of gravity. And same thing, it's still in the middle when your legs are spread apart. And this is why when you're on something unstable, like you're on a rocking boat or something like that, our immediate response is to spread our feet, because that gives you a wider base, so that even if your center of gravity is moving back and forth a lot, you're still going to be able to stay on your 2 feet because you've got a wide base. That's the whole point. That's what stability is keeping the center of gravity above the base, which is your contact with the ground. And again, that's why the Leaning Tower of Pisa has not fallen over, because its center of gravity is still within its base region. If it were ever to tip so much that the center of gravity was not over the base anymore, then it would fall over, right? That's why you trip if you're walking and you trip on a root or something like that. It's because when your foot hit that root, your center of gravity then went past where your base is and you fall over because of that. So we're going to do a little activity that is going to explore that now. But first, any questions on any of that from chapter 5.5, 5.6? Pretty straightforward. A lot of just terminology stuff. So, okay. Our activity for today, again, we're going to use Flipgrid. I apologize if you guys are getting sick of this, but I think it's good to get away from our computers when we can. I'll show you a little demonstration video, and then I'll give you about 15 minutes to go and try this activity on your own. Here you go.
Nice to those two activities we're going to do today. First, I'd like you to try is this little balancing act from the book. If you feel up to it and are able. First, you're just going to bend over and touch your toes. Don't even have to lock your knees, and you should be able to stay balanced by shifting your center of gravity. But then I want you to get flat against the wall and see if you can do the same thing without falling over. And you should find that it's a little more challenging.
That fat cat in the background is Lionel, by the way.
Straight for you now. Just like normal, that's nice and easy, but when I get flat up against the wall here and try to do the same thing, you'll see that your center of gravity is shifted, so it's much harder. Okay, second activity, we're going to do a little bit of a balancing act. What you're going to need for this is something sturdy like a mug, or you can use a small drinking glass or plastic. I think a glass, you want something that's heavy and stable, so I would probably avoid plastic. A mug or a drinking glass would be good. You'll need two identical forks. It's important that they are exactly the same because these are what we need to balance. So if you don't have metal forks available, maybe see if you can track down some plastic ones. And you'll need something like a toothpick. And if you don't have toothpicks, you can maybe use matches. You could maybe find like a shish kebab stick, which are a little bit longer, but you can break those apart. And so here's what you're going to do. The first thing you need to do is you need to lock together the two forks. And this is going to be kind of challenging, so you need to get your thumbs involved. But what you want to do is intertwine them like so. And again, use your thumbs to really make sure that they kind of lock in with each other. And you should end up with something like that you can then balance and find the center of weight. Do the same thing with the metal ones. This is a little trickier. I have forks that only have 3 tines, but if we get, usually if I use my thumbs, I'm able to get them to lock in. So there we go, we'll see if that holds. And then you want to hold it so that you've found its center of gravity, right? You can see that it's balanced now. And here's the challenge. What I want to do now is balance it on the mug with a toothpick. And so you want to sort of turn it sideways and insert the wooden toothpick right in the middle. And you might have to jam it in a little bit if the tines are close together. And then you want to rest the whole structure on the edge of the mug so that it balances. And really the first trick is just getting the forks to sort of stay in place, and then find that center of mass so that the whole thing sits very close. There you go. So that's what you're going for right there. You can see that the forks are sort of magically suspended by the single toothpick, and that's because, again, the center of gravity is right where you're looking at the edge of the mug, where the toothpick is. And the reason for that, why it looks so crazy, is because most of the weight is actually in the handles of the forks on either side. You might have seen some toys. They often make them in the form of a bird with its wings spread, and you can balance it on the edge of a table on its beak. It works in a very similar fashion. So it's a bit of a challenge, but see if you can film yourself doing that. It might take multiple takes. You might need to practice a few times to get it right, but then see if you can document yourself doing that and post it to Flipgrid.
All righty.
Thanks.
Oops. On Flipgrid, and I've provided the link there on the tasks right below the video is the link to the Flipgrid assignment. If you don't want to watch that whole video again, I've got a short description of the activity on Flipgrid. Again, try the little balancing thing from Hewitt. You're just going to bend over, touch your toes, and then flat against the wall and try to do the same thing. I have heard that girls are more able to do this than guys. So see if you can actually still stay standing with that. Anyway, I don't know. We'll see what results we get. And then second activity with the forks, I'm going to give us about 15 minutes or so to try this, but you don't have to have the video done, right? The whole point is to use this time to at least get the supplies, give it a try a few times. Come check in with me if you're not able to find certain things. Get creative, right? It's okay if you don't have metal forks, try plastic ones. If you don't have any toothpicks, try matches. If you don't have anything wooden, you can try like a needle or maybe even like a paper clip or something. You can get creative with that stuff. Come check in with me if you're really struggling with it. But this is just time to play around. If you can get the video done, great. But if you can't, don't worry too much about it. So I'm going to give us, I want to give us 15 minutes, but I want to have time for this other stuff too. But we'll, let's, if we did 15 minutes, then let's come back here at 9:20. So that gives you about 14 minutes, but I'll be here listening. So if you have questions or if you're not sure what to do or you want to replace a piece or something, you can check in with me. But otherwise, go ahead and try to get your video done if you can, or at least get the supplies and give it a try. So, all right, go for it. Meet back here at 9:20. Great. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about in this class today is hopefully what you all got an email about. Does anyone know what is due next Tuesday? Something you have to work on this week?
Course selections.
Course registration. So, yep. So I'm going to help you out with that as much as I can. I've put together a sort of short presentation that I'm going to work through right now to talk about what your options are. Feel free to jump in and ask questions or ask me to slow down or whatever. I've also already made a video of this that you can watch on your own time if you want. But yes, as you guys know, you are the first generation that has gone through our new science curriculum. So you took PSI, you're now completing Science 2. And so now you are moving on to our first year of offering electives to juniors as well as seniors. So I'm hoping that a lot of you will consider these semester courses. But anyway, I'll get to that. Point is, I'm going to be the one who will sign you up for your courses next year for science. So you'll need to meet with me one-on-one. We'll use some class time to do this, or we can meet at some other time before next Tuesday. And I'm going to go on to Slate, which is the same program you use for advising. And this is what I'll see. You can see it here on the screen. Hopefully, these are all your options. This is what you can pick from. And so my goal is just to talk through what each of these is and what you should consider and what I would encourage and what I would discourage for you. You have a ton of resources available. The curriculum guide is really, really useful. I know it's intimidating. It's sort of this big, gigantic digital notebook. Oh, I don't have it open anymore. But the science stuff starts on page 44. So I strongly encourage you to go read over that. It has descriptions of everything. I have the placement requirements, so what you have to have done in order to get into certain courses. For your planning sheet is helpful. You might want to think about what you want to take your senior year, because that could govern then what you sign up for as a junior. And there's more information on your Pirate page. And again, you're not new to this. I think the best resources are to talk to students who've taken these courses before, and also to the teachers who are teaching them. That's the best thing if you're on the fence about something. So, all right. Graduation requirements in science at Stevenson are now that you have taken PSI or the equivalent of it and 1 year of Science 2. So you guys have met those first two requirements, assuming you pass Science 2, which it looks like all of you are going to do. Then in order to graduate, you just need one further year of a lab science, which means, again, it's a science course that has a lab component to it. It's not something, you couldn't take like a online course over the summer and have that count. It has to be a lab science, and that's because of the UC system. University of California requires lab sciences, so that's what we try to match. But then that's it. So honestly, you could take a science course next year as a junior, and then you don't have to take a science as a senior if you don't want to. If you're really passionate about history or English, you can double up on those and avoid science. However, I do have some students who are like, oh, that means I could skip science my junior year, right? I don't have to take science next year, and I'll just take a science course as a senior to graduate. I do not recommend that at all. If you're not a science person in particular, you don't want to be trapped in a science course as a senior that you have to pass in order to graduate. It's just not a good situation. So I would just encourage everyone to sign up for a science course next year. And then if you're not a science person, you've got your science requirement out of the way and you can focus on other things senior year. Any questions on that so far? graduation requirements and resources. Feeling good? All right. So again, I'll try to go through this quickly. Oops. Because I'm still in presentation mode. So, all right. So what I'm hoping most of you will sign up for, most students coming out of Science 2 and Science 2 Honors will be signing up for these science semester courses. These are what we used to call electives. They used to only be open to seniors. Now they're open to both seniors and juniors. That's the prerequisite. There is none. They're open. Every single one of these courses is open to you. There's a wide variety of courses. They're single semester. So there's some that will only be offered in the fall and some that will only be offered in the spring. And they are focused on biology, chemistry, environmental science, physics, and you can mix things up as much as you want. You can take a biology themed one in the fall and a physics themed one in the spring, or vice versa. It's whatever you want to do. The idea is that these are just fun ways to explore science. So you could take these single semester courses as a junior and a senior. Or if you're interested in taking an AP course as a senior, so like let's say you really want to take AP biology, then the biology related courses here, the semester courses, are meant to prepare you for that AP. So you will be going into AP biology with some good biology background, and you'll be more likely to succeed and more likely to take a lot from that AP bio course if you've taken those as a junior. So let me talk about the courses that you have as an option. This is the description from the book. There's no definitive list yet, but what I'm showing you, I'm pretty sure is what's going to be offered. It kind of depends on what students sign up for, honestly, because we don't get many signups for a course, then that course won't be offered. So it's sort of up to you. This is the list from the description. So you can see the biology themed ones, chemistry themed, environmental science themed, and physics themed. And I'll go through and just give you a quick description of each of these, as well as my best guess at who is teaching them. I don't actually know for sure. So let's talk about the biology related ones. Dr. Griffiths, I believe, is going to be offering these. He used to teach biology in the past and he wants to get back into it. He's offering a single semester course on brains and behavior, so neuroscience and probably a little bit of psychology stuff too, and on evolutionary biology. So you'll learn all about Darwin, natural selection, that sort of thing. I'll be offering two courses. One is called Genetics and Disease. It's exactly what it sounds like. We'll learn about the basics of genetics, genetic disorders, and how disease is influenced by your genes. And then Anatomy and Physiology of the Human Body. So this will involve a lot of dissections, a lot of vocabulary learning, that sort of thing, but we'll do a deep dive into the human body, single semester course. Mr. Zerny is offering a marine science course, great course to take in our local area. You'll go tide pooling, that sort of thing. I think Mr. Provo might be teaching this too, or might be helping out. Mr. Zerny is going to offer ornithology. Does anyone know what that is? The study of?
Birds.
Yes, birds, which again, great course to take in our local area. Used to be offered in the past, and so they're sort of reawakening this one. Mr. Yamashita is offering sports medicine. He's always offered this course. You should talk to students who've taken it. Sounds like a lot of fun. You're learning how to you'll be taping up the football players before their games. You'll learn how to deal with different injuries and do cool stretches and all kinds of cool stuff. And it gets very medical and sciencey as well. So this also actually has a lot of human body anatomy and physiology in it as well. Dr. Wenzel's offering a bunch of chemistry stuff. He does a lot of nutrition and food things. So there's biochemistry of diet as well as food science and nutrition. You'll definitely change the way you think about food by taking these. He's also offering a pharmacology course, which is focusing on drugs and how drugs act inside the human body. So this is sort of a biochemistry course. And as far as I know, very research-based, that you'll be picking a certain drug and doing a lot of research into how it affects the human body. Mr. McCormick's offering a bunch of really cool environmental science courses, designing a better way, sort of addressing a lot of the problems. What's it like to go green and what are the technologies we have to do that? The Earth in Crisis, looking at, again, kind of very relevant real world situation that our planet's in and what's changing and how we can counteract a lot of climate stuff. And same thing here too, also our changing climate, and looking at sort of building on what we've been doing in science too, looking at carbon emissions and the history of that. Mr. Provo is offering an astronomy course. He's always offered this. You can talk to students who've taken it. They got big telescopes. You can look into the sky, some very cool stuff. Also some very math and physics related stuff, talking about orbits, which we'll be exploring in a little bit. Mr. Henriksen took the Stevenson chemistry course and basically split it into two different electives. So if you're really feeling, if you really like physics, then you might want to take these two in connection with each other. Mechanics and kinematics in the fall, I think, and forces and energy in the spring, though I'm not sure. But that being said, you don't have to take both of these. You could take a biology course in the fall and then still sign up for forces and energy in the spring. They're meant to be independent courses. You don't have to take one to take the other. And that's the offerings. So if you sign up for a science semester course, right now, all I'll do is check that box. What I assume will happen is that you'll then get an email or some kind of slate notice that will then be like, okay, here are the course offerings for the fall, here are the course offerings for the spring, and you'll prioritize. Here's my first choice, my second choice, my third choice. And just understand that we can't guarantee you'll get your first choice. Again, it sort of depends on what students sign up for and how scheduling works. But I think that's how it's going to work. Any questions on that and the electives? Or sorry, I call them electives, single semester courses is what I should say.
So as
Sound
far
good?
as like credit for taking the class, so if you take one semester, like
Mhm.
what is that? Is that just like half of a?
I think that's half the credit, and then you take the a different course in the spring, and that's the other half of the credit. Yeah, so
Like
it's still a
yeah,
single credit course like any other course.
if you're gonna take like one biology semester and then another for physics, will that still like be full credit for the year?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So again, you can mix things up as much as you want. You don't have to. If you do biology in the fall, it doesn't mean you have to do biology in the spring. Yeah, you can mix it up however you want. And same thing too with like if you're interested in taking AP Bio, you can take a bio one in the fall. You can take a physics one in the spring. That's okay. It's not going to block you from signing up for AP Bio. You can do whatever you want. You might just have to do a little more preparation. So hi, this is my daughter here who's joining our class for a second. So okay. Those are good questions. Any others?
Can you do the same course like for both semesters?
You mean like like one course twice?
Or like two bios, even if they're like
Oh yeah,
different.
yeah. You could do two bios. You could do two chems. Yes, definitely. And as far as I know, right now, I think certain ones will only be offered in the fall or only in the spring. But I think that there might be some that are offered both fall and spring too. I don't know. We'll have to see what the availability is. So okay. So just to get through these last few very quickly and try to explain the situation, we're doing okay on time. So the next three, app development, pre-engineering, and robotics, are all very kind of physics and math based. These are technically not lab sciences. Not entirely sure why, because they are very practical and hands-on, but since they aren't lab sciences, if you want to take any of these as a junior, you're going to need to double up because you still have to work your way towards the graduation requirements. So if you are really liking science and especially physics and you want to pair these up with physics, that's a good option. So I think Mr. Mayer in the tech department offers app development. It's a lot of coding stuff. Pre-engineering is Mr. Akjan. A lot of hands-on projects. You're going to like carve guitars and make chairs out of cardboard. A lot of math stuff as well. Robotics is Mr. D'Angelo. He's really a good teacher. He used to be in the tech industry. He's retired and is just kind of doing this in his spare time. And it's a lot of cool. They do a lot of aquatic bot stuff. So, but again, you'll see the requirement there is that you have completed 3 years of the lab science either previously or simultaneously, meaning that you would need to take you might have to sign up for like some of the semester courses and then take robotics, pre-engineering, or app development in conjunction, right? So these you would have to double up on your sciences. But if you wait until your senior year, right? So let's say you don't take these this year, but then senior year, you could take app development, pre-engineering, or robotics just by themselves, right? Because you will have already met the lab science graduation requirements, and then you could just take these on their own, no problem. So I still encourage these if you're willing to double up. This next whole row here, from Physics Honors down to AP Physics C, I'm going to discourage these courses, which I know is a weird thing for me to say, but there's going to be a lot more seniors in these classes than juniors. And I think the few juniors who do go into these courses are going to be on a pretty advanced track. Kids who are coming out of Science 2 honors who are just really passionate and really, really focused on these particular topics. Physics Honors used to be what was called AP Physics B. It was an algebra-based AP Physics. They did away with the exam, but they've kept the course, so they just call it Physics Honors now. But it's pretty intense, algebra-based. I think Dr. Koenig teaches this, so she's a good person to talk to if you are interested in doing this. But I think that if you're interested in physics, a better option is going to be Mr. Henriksen's semester courses in physics. That's the standard physics course. This is just kind of a whole deeper level. It's going to be a little more intense. AP Bio, I know everybody likes, but it's, again, really intense course. If you're interested in taking AP Bio, I recommend it. Save it for your senior year, and during your junior year, take the biology-themed science semester courses. It's the same story with AP Chemistry, AP Environmental Science. I would recommend check out the semester courses as a junior and then consider these courses as a senior. That being said, there are some of you who I think have done well enough, and I think you could succeed in these courses and take something like AP Bio or AP Chem, but you might have a hard time with it. So Mr. Zerny is the AP Bio teacher. Dr. Wenzel teaches AP Chemistry. You can talk to previous students about his course. Mr. McCormick teaches AP Environmental Science. Very cool course. You're going to be solving the world's problems. You can talk to him about that. And AP Physics C, I believe, is also Mr. Akjan. So you can talk to them about those courses. But again, I think you should save those to your senior year if you want to take them at all. You'll be more prepared and you'll take more from those courses with a little more preparation. The last two is just a research project. If there's something you're passionate about, but you don't want to like take a course in it or we don't offer it, you could do your own research. I think Dr. Wenzel oversees this, and these are students who often end up going to the science fairs and things like that. It's a lot of time outside of class. Again, doesn't meet the lab component, I think, or graduation requirements, so you would need to double up if you wanted to do this as a junior. But if you want to do it as a senior, you could just do this on your own, no problem. You wouldn't have to double up. Same thing, they're offering an Intro to Computer Science course. I think either Mrs. Wenzel or Mr. Mayer teach this. And again, no lab components, you would have to double up as a junior. But again, senior year, you could just take this for fun if you wanted to. So I know it's a lot I threw at you. I tried to make this sort of diagram to help just kind of summarize what your options are. I strongly encourage this first one, the science semester courses. I think that's where most Science 2 students are going to go, and Science 2 honors students are going to go here too. If you want to double up on science, these are all really good options, especially to pair with something like physics, the physics semester courses. I would stay away from these AP and physics honors courses unless you're really feeling passionate about it and you're really ready for a challenging year. And then the other two, again, last two are sort of signing up. So in terms of what to do next, check out the resources, think about what you want to take, talk to older students and teachers, and then just take some time to meet with me. We'll use some class time to do this as well and get that done. So, all right, I know I threw a lot at you there, but any questions on any of those later courses?
Yeah. So say you want to take like AP Bio or something, do you have to meet a certain like semester classes for like, is there a requirement for like?
I would say that if you wanted to take AP Biology, then yeah, we would definitely want to see you taking the biology related semester courses. So as juniors, like taking any of these, the brains and behavior, evolutionary biology, genetics and disease, anatomy and physiology, marine science, ornithology, sports medicine, those are gonna gear you up for AP Bio. But that being said, I don't think that, if you decided to do one bio in like the fall, but then did a physics in the spring, I don't think that would block you from getting into AP Biology, right? If you look, the technical requirement for AP Bio right here is to qualify, a student should have earned at least an average. So they have grade requirements for Science 2 and Science 2 honors and receive permission. So no, there's no specific semester course requirement. But that being said, if you did a year of physics, that's not exactly going to be relevant to your AP Bio experience, but I don't think it would block you from taking it. Good question. All right, anything else?
Should we reach out to you for when we're gonna meet?
Yeah, you can, and we'll use a significant portion of class time during our next class meeting that I'll basically give you guys like sort of a little project thing to do on your computer, and we'll go into breakout rooms, and I'll come check in with as many of you as you can. But if you want to fire me an email as well, if you've kind of made up your mind, and especially if it's the elective, then I can just sign you right up. And I'm happy to kind of hang out after this lesson too right now. So just to conclude the lesson, homework is posted. You should post your video to Flipgrid. Again, don't waste too much time. If you can't get it to work, it's okay. Think about your curriculum. And there is a reading I would like you to read, Hewitt chapter 5.8 through 5.9. We are skipping, or no, sorry, I need to fix that. It should be 5.7 through 5.8. I'm going to fix that right now. And then reading check questions 15, 17, and 19. There is no quiz on this reading, so don't worry about a quiz for the next period. All right, kiddos, that is it for me. Thank you very much. Have a good day. If you want to hang out and talk about course signups, I will wait, but otherwise you're all good to go. Thanks.
I have a question.